because we've been running under this assumption that once we get to yes with the PLO, once we get that agreement with them, everything will be fine, we've ignored the question of governance. Now, what is governance? Governance is the nuts and bolts of life. It's who collects the sewage, it's who distributes water, it's who deals with traffic jams and traffic signals and highway accidents, who fixes potholes, who is in charge of education, who provides for health care, et cetera, all the things that make up our daily life. And since Israel has been operating under the assumption, or the fantasy really, that the PLO is interested in governing because they're interested in statehood rather than interested in using everything that they've gotten from Israel in order to wage war against it and immiserate the lives of the Palestinians with the misfortune of living under their jackboot, nobody has really dealt with governance. And so what we have today is a situation where, right, in order to pursue a dream that has no chance of ever materializing, that has failed repeatedly for a quarter of a century, we've been ignoring the needs of the people who are actually on the ground. And the question is, well, can we separate them? Can we work on governance and not work on peace? And the answer is, of course you can. Of course you can. What would this involve, though? What does it mean? How do you deal with it? Well, first of all, why is it a problem? Well, the problem with governance right now is the PLO is in charge of the big cities and villages that the Palestinians, by and large, over 90% of them live in. Israel's responsible for areas where all the Israeli communities, 500,000 Israeli citizens live in them, and another 100,000 or so Palestinians who live in close proximity to them. And they're governed not by the Israeli government, but by the Israeli military and the Israeli military government, which provides a very inequitable distribution of resources and doesn't provide the basic services and the rights and the civil rights that all people, citizens of a democracy, deserve. So we have the situation where the governance is a problem. The peace process is a road to nowhere. It's just empowering terrorists and corrupt officials. And we've been acting like, well, we can't deal with the governance, but what would it involve? So the Palestinians who are living under Israeli military government, well, they're subjects of a military government. The Israelis, who are run by a military administration, are denied basic civil rights of due process that people who don't live under military government but live under Israel's civilian authorities, the citizens of the state, receive. And the military itself is harmed. Because from a military perspective, how can a general worry about defeating an enemy with his forces when he's responsible for appeasing it? Because he's the head of the military government. Well, so it corrupts the Israeli military, and it denies basic rights to the Israeli citizens and the Palestinian citizens who live under the military rule that they deserve as people who are subjected to Israeli control. So this means that, now, is change in governments contingent on reaching peace? No, it's contingent on Israel saying, let's behave equitably towards the Palestinians, towards the Israelis, and get the army out of the business of civilians. Stop making them responsible for these areas where you have 500,000 Israeli citizens, give or take, living under military rule. Let's forget about it. Let's apply Israeli law to these areas, provide an equitable governance, a fair, democratic rule of law for all these people in the area who are now subjected to military administration to live under. But what about the Palestinians? Wait, if you do this, if you apply Israeli law to those areas of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank of the Jordan River, then doesn't that negate any prospects for peace? Well, no, not at all. Because right now there's no prospects for peace because you have the PLO running as a mini-state inside of Judea and Samaria, and they're not at all interested in governance, but on the other hand, they're also on the verge of collapse. So they don't want to have peace, they don't want to govern, so fine. Let them continue on until they collapse, and then we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll have to deal with it militarily, maybe they'll want to become part of Israel, maybe they'll want to live under an autonomous regime or self-rule of their own that wants to live at peace with Israel. Maybe the PLO will suddenly change after its collapse and decide, wait a minute, we made a mistake. We want to have a real peace with Israel and we want to build a state. All of these things are possible. But none of these things have to be dealt with now. When we think about the peace process and we think about governance, we realize that this whole time we've been living under this delusion that we can't take care of things that are in our power to change for the better for the Israelis and the Palestinians on the ground that are going to enable peace in practice among the peoples of the land of Israel, because we keep thinking that everything has to be contingent on somebody else agreeing to have us do this. So in order to appease a terrorist organization, the Palestine Liberation Organization, we've enabled them to set up a police state that harms the Palestinians who live under them, denying them basic rights, that wages war against Israel, both from a terrorist perspective and from a political perspective, economic perspective, to try to delegitimize the very existence of Israel. This isn't how you act when you want a two-state solution. And we haven't taken care of the things that we can, as Israelis, take care of to bring about peace on the ground in practice and free and total civil rights that every Israeli citizen, as citizens of a democracy, is entitled to. So what we have to do now is take a step back, say, okay, so this peace process, the two-state solution thing failed, but that's not the end of the road. And that doesn't mean we can't do anything else. What we have to do now is make the situation better for everybody by taking care of the things that we can take care of. And we can take care of governance. And let's try it if we put the horse before the cart. Right? And if we've been putting the cart before the horse, now let's put the horse before the cart and just move forward. We never know what's going to happen, but we do know that if we're improving the lives and the equality of Israelis and Palestinians on the ground under Israeli law today, then we're already going to be in a better place, a more stable place, a more peaceful place than we are at present. It's better for Israel, it's better for the Palestinians, it's better for the Israeli army, and I dare say it's better for the entire region. So peace, maybe. Governance, definitely. Let's take care of it. Thank you.